Hey everyone, it's the interview queen Alicia Atout here, and it is my absolute pleasure to welcome you all to my interview with Alex Hammerstone. Hello.
How's it going, Alicia?
Good. How have you been? How are you holding up?
I'm doing all right.
I feel like it's definitely been a minute since I saw you at tapings last time, so I guess just kind of fill me and a bunch of the fans watching in on what you've been up to over there.
Same old. Just a lot of gym, a lot of wrestling, a lot of the good old stuff. Luckily, things are normalizing to some extent, especially around me in Arizona. So I've been able to resume somewhat normalcy in my day-to-day life. Obviously, we're still dealing with a somewhat minimized wrestling schedule, which is rough, but hey, we're going to do it one day at a time.
Right, we'll get there eventually, fingers crossed. But it definitely seems like even though there are less promotions currently running and less shows, you are training harder than ever right now. So are you in the gym pretty much every day? Because I feel like there's a new selfie every single day coming in my feed.
Uh, Pretty much, yeah. If I'm not in the gym, it's because I'm on the road and I'm just not able to make it, or I'm working at our wrestling school that we run here in Arizona. So it's pretty much something physical every single day, because even though I'm not wrestling quite as much as I was, maybe, before all this nonsense started, um, I have to keep in mind that when things do get firing off again, I'm going to be kind of jumping into the deep end and expected to probably perform in some big time matches. And I don't want to be caught
Right.
off guard.
No, definitely. That's a good mindset to have because you never know what's going to be thrown your way or when things are going to get back to complete normalcy. But you've been posting some really great throwbacks as well. And it's kind of crazy to see how much you have changed and how much muscle you've actually put on. So, what made you want to go from that young, skinny kid to how you are now? Like, was there kind of a turning point for you?
I mean, I honestly, like, I got the muscle bug even before I started wrestling. I remember I wanted to be a wrestler, and before I even started, my decision was like, oh, well, I have to get muscular first, because in my head, like, I grew up watching all these like bodybuilder-esque wrestlers.
Yeah, they had the V physiques. That was like what you had to have.
I thought that was a prerequisite. So I spent
Right.
like years in the gym before I even went to wrestling school. And then when I got there, I was like the biggest guy there. I was like, oh, I guess like you don't have to be, big. And then since then it's just been, a slow progression year after year. And then, especially like kind of becoming like synonymous with that, like kind of like that evolving into almost part of my shtick and part of what makes me. Um, it became like that much more like kind of like motivation to keep up with it and to push harder and to to never slack off, because it's like now people expect a certain thing, and then when they expect Hammerstone to show up, they expect like a larger than life physique. So it's like, well, I guess it pushes me that much harder in the gym, and it never lets me slack off.
Well, it's interesting because I came across something where when you first were in that mindset, hey, I got to bulk up and get bigger, I just get on that muscle train to Muscle Mountain. Your mom from the jump was like, no, you are not doing this. You are not getting into wrestling. So, what kind of happened when she started seeing the success come your way and like where you are now? She was really definitively like, no, you are not doing this.
I mean, and I think more than anything, there's a couple factors that go into that. First of all, it wasn't just like, hey, mom, I want to be a pro wrestler. It was, hey, mom, I have a full ride scholarship to university,
Yeah,
and I'm going to drop out to be a pro. So
that's a
it,
lot.
it wasn't just the rest aspect. It was like what I was sacrificing to do it. But also, she was dating an ex cage fighter at the time, and he had like brain damage from fighting. And she attributed, like, she didn't know the difference between what we were doing. So she thought like, oh, you're gonna be like this underground cage fighter. And I'm like, mom, I have sparkly tights on. It's a lot different.
Right. There's a lot of spandex. We're good.
Yeah, but over time, honestly, like the first couple of years when you're wrestling in community centers and like little high school gyms and kind of embarrassing like settings, like it is kind of like she's watching, like, what are you doing? But as things progressed, and I did have a very steady, upward trajectory the first couple of years. Like, she started to see that it was paying off, and now it's like everyone just understands that this is what I'm doing now.
Well, just speaking to that paying off, we do have to talk a little bit about MLW, as that's our home promotion, where you are our national open weight champion. So everyone, of course, wants a place to call home in wrestling. So for you, what does it kind of mean for your home to actually be MLW, especially after all the work you've put into getting to where you are now?
It means a lot. And I think, I've spoke to this before, but it's very apparent from just, that people haven't seen every interview or heard everything I've ever said. And a lot of people don't always know the full story of things, because for a lot of people, I burst onto the scene in 2019, and like now I'm like a hot wrestler, but it's like a lot of people don't realize I've been wrestling since like 2011.
Yeah.
I had opportunities like every company, like I had tryout matches, or I had a dark match, or, I sent my stuff in and had some emails back and forth, like, and have every major company have a chance, and nobody did anything with me. And then MLW, at the beginning, when MLW signed me, there was a couple companies all at once finally came at me. But I really got the vibe that MLW was the only one that was like, hey, here's what we're offering, but we want you specifically. We have these ideas for you, and we see what you can do. And we have this vision of like what you're going to accomplish in the company. Whereas like anyone else was kind of just like, oh, hey, do you want a job?
Yeah.
It's like, and after like, and if I hadn't had all those prior experiences, I wouldn't place so much value on what I was seeing with MLW. But I knew like that's what I want. I don't just want a certain amount of money in my contract. I want to have opportunity. I want to be featured. I want to be able to go out and display what I've been working to do the last couple of years. And they've really provided that for me, and continue to provide that for me. And it's like, I definitely feel it's a company where the more you put in, the more they're going to give you. And it's
100%.
it's very much not like, deciding who's going to be the star when they get there. It's like, okay, you work and you get to reach for the brass ring. And if you grab it, we're going to let you keep it.
No, I feel like you're definitely preaching to the choir there, because a lot of what you said is super relatable from my stance. And I've only been with the company for about a year, but I'm just loving everything. It's a well-oiled machine. And you're right. When you put the work in, they recognize it. They also give you a little pat on the back, and they're able to give you more because they can see what you're able to do. So you're definitely one of the faces of the company that's carrying it, which is really awesome to see.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying my best here.
Well, we do have a mutual acquaintance who happens to also be with MLW, and that is one of your great friends and one of my biggest annoyances, being Richard Holliday. So I just have to ask, especially since it's a one-on-one and he's not going to interrupt this call, how do you stand being in the same room with that guy?
Man, Richard's quite the polarizing character, but he's since I came into the company, man, he's had my back, and we just bonded really quickly. It's funny. Like, I don't know if I've ever told this story on any kind of podcast, but I remember the first MLW show I showed up to, he was sitting at the commentary desk, and he was kind of like, I think he was just speaking. Maybe Matt Stryker was doing commentary at that show, and so he was just kind of having a conversation with Matt Stryker. But I didn't know any better, and I thought Holiday was like commentator. So I just walked like, "Hey man, this is the name of my finish. This is the name," and he's like, "I'm a commentator."
That's
so
hilarious.
But even despite that, almost taken out of context, could be seen as a disrespectful beginning.
Right.
Now we laugh about it, and we became friends very quickly. And then it's not just any kind of storyline thing. Like, he's one of my closest friends in the business, and I recognize that he does get on some people's nerves, and he's very I think that's part of his strange dynastic charm, I'll say.
Well, and I don't really mean this with offense, but I feel like you get where I'm coming from. As annoying as the Dynasty can be to me sometimes, it is always interesting and really fun filming promos with you guys, because sometimes you will say shit that's so ridiculously hilarious and out of left field. So have you always kind of been pretty quick-witted and quick on your feet when it comes to those types of replies and just promo work in general?
So it's funny because I've always felt very comfortable with promos. I've always felt very good at, I don't like to plan a lot of stuff. I've always felt very comfortable speaking kind of off the cuff, and especially playing off other people. I felt very good at that. But prior to everything with the Dynasty, I had never really explored comedy in wrestling whatsoever. I was always just I was the big muscular ass kicker of a character, and that's what I had done. And I mean, there's an aspect of that to me, but it was very much a character I was playing. I was like, I never just loosened up and let myself be myself on camera. And that's what the Dynasty pulled out of me. It just was like, eventually it just felt like, especially, when we started with Max, it was just three guys hanging out and just bullshitting on camera, basically, more or
Yeah.
less. uh, we were just goofing around, having a good time. They would, we'd have an idea of what we were supposed to get on camera, and sometimes we would get nothing across that we were supposed to, but that was the promo we kept because it was just so funny or so,
I've been
so
there. There's this one promo that we filmed at the last tapings, which was absolutely ridiculous, which has yet to air, so I'm not going to spoil it for everybody. But sometimes you'll say something, and I'm almost shocked that they air it because it is so funny and out there. So do you almost try to push the envelope in that way? Of course, with being respectful to the brand and everything. But I feel like the more and more we do together, or even when you do solo stuff, I'm like, oh, he went there. That's pretty great.
I'm always surprised because, like, sometimes you almost say something thinking they're gonna like automatically shut it down. Like,
Yeah.
there's a fly, and then it ends up on TV, and it's like, oh my! Like, I remember the first time, like, I made a joke reference to like crossing the border to get special supplements, and I was like, there's no way that's gonna end up on TV. And then, like, next thing you know, they're like printing merch specifically catered around those jokes. I'm like, man, not only did they like let it fly, they ran with it.
Yeah,
so
they embellished it.
Yeah, it's always interesting. We got to push the envelope. I think we've done it since the beginning, so we'll only know that line when they tell us we crossed it.
Absolutely. Well, it does seem like a true goal of yours is to perfect that Hogan tan. And I've got to say, you're pretty damn close. You almost have that whole leathery gold glisten down. So before shows, because I remember from Mexico, you came in and everyone was like, even Pillman was like, what did you do? You were so dark. We almost had a competition. So how many times do you actually spray tan before a show or tapings?
No, I don't have I don't go to a place. I don't have a ridiculous routine. I literally all I do, I just have these two different ones. One's a rub-on lotion and one's a spray-on, and the combination is it's just money. Especially if you have a good base tan before you put it on. It's that's the way to go. But I'm not gonna spoil my secrets and tell people that special combination. I don't about.
Right. Well, outside of wrestling, I do know that a huge passion of yours is the fact that you not only love music, but you also play music, and you're really good at guitar. So was music ever something you really wanted to pursue professionally? I know that you've been in bands and, you play a lot of, or you post a lot of your videos as well.
Yeah. So it definitely was. It was what I wanted to do, probably from age 12 to 18 or 19. I was in a band with my brother and one of our best friends from high school. I actually played drums in this band, not guitar. But I look back and I'm like, man, why did we break up? Because I like now, like with my mindset now and like looking back on like what's succeeded and realizing how young we were at the time, I really believe we could have been successful as a band, because we were just, I'm not saying I was so talented, but as a group, the stuff we were putting out was very, very good and very ahead of our age. And it's definitely something I wanted to do. But as time went on, I became frustrated in like working with a specific group of people when like we got so busy with our regular lives. One person wouldn't be pulling their weight at one time. And then when you don't want to pull your weight, they're complaining that you're not.
Yeah.
And so that's when I really got involved with weightlifting and with wrestling, because it was very individually focused. It was like, whatever I put into this, I get to reap the rewards. But what's very interesting is what I found was a lot of the things that a lot of people struggle with in pro wrestling in the early stages, finding a persona or being comfortable performing in front of people or talking or just, kind of being the center of attention. Like, I had already broken down those barriers by performing as a musician. And it was like, I was very comfortable in that realm. So I was like soaking up, like trying to be like the most popular wrestler in the world before I barely even knew how to wrestle. So I kind of like learned what some people struggle with as a hard part. I already had that from being a musician. So I found it helped a lot.
I really wanted to talk music with you because I came from the music world and industry into wrestling as well. And you kind of, within my first year, I was interviewing some of the biggest people and everyone was like, where did you come from? Like, you've done nothing. And I'm like, I literally was in music for 5 years, busting my butt. So it's really cool hearing that you kind of had the same parallels, and you really just start to notice whether it's the touring, the traveling, how taxing it can be. The similarities are just incredible.
I tell people all the time, they're like, how do you make it as a pro wrestler? And I'm like, well, it's kind of like being an indie band. You just play these little dive bars for no money or maybe $20. And
yeah, for sure.
building your name and hoping you get your big break here or there.
Well, I know when it comes to you coming out to the ring, I mean, you've definitely come down the ramp to bands like Nine Inch Nails, currently Queens of the Stone Age, which is super cool. So who's one band or artist you'd actually love to write some personalized entrance music for you?
Oh man, that's hard. I mean, right now, like I'm so into like my entrance music. So my current entrance music at MLW, it's not just something they had, and it was like we specifically had a discussion before the restart about what I wanted to use, and that's the song I've been using on the indies. But obviously, it's like okay, there's copyright rules, but they went and purchased the rights to be able to use that on TV specifically for me at my request. Which is phenomenal because there's nothing like coming out to like the song you want to come out to. It just gets me amped up every time. So it's like I'm so into that right now that I can't think of any other band but Queens of the Stone Age doing music for me right now.
Okay, well maybe, who knows, one day down the line they can like perform it. It'll just be super epic.
Coolest thing ever.
Yeah. Well, the last thing I want to ask you about, because right now I know I'm craving it, it's just live music. So for you, what would you say is the best concert you ever went to?
Oh man, that's hard. I gotta say it's probably the Strokes, which is my favorite band. And the caveat to that is that the last time they played in Arizona was 2007. So that's when I saw them, because basically after that they were such like a big phenomenon of a band that all they did was play like the major tours, or major festivals, I should say. So it's like if it wasn't some big huge festival with like 20 bands, they weren't doing it. They weren't just doing a national tour. So I haven't been able to see them since then. So it's like not only was that like such a cool concert, but it was like I saw it when I was a kid, and I was like, I've been wanting to see them ever since then. So I think that concert always has a special place in my heart.
I've seen them at festivals before, and they put on such a good show. So it's good you were able to see them and squeeze that in, even though it was quite some time ago. Well, I do really want to say thank you a ton for coming on here, for shooting the breeze. It's been a minute, so I'm glad we're able to catch up and do this all on camera. So thank you a ton, Alex.
Of course. Thanks for having me, Alicia.
My pleasure. To everyone watching, this has been Alex Hammerstone. Be sure to watch us both every Wednesday night at 7 p.m. EST on MLW Fusion, and check out aliciatout.com for more exclusive interviews and features. We'll see you all next time. Bye, everyone.